I just do it drugs. Right, directly drag all the way down the line. Or control input. I've never done it. Well, Windows 11 they can basically get it. I had a fun day though. We don't get files. Someone's favorite decided those were going to be open in Notepad. Oh, not change it to let them be open in files. And I'm telling Puppy today I had zip files pulled aside, they would only open in Notepad. I had to go in, what do I see? Like settings that we don't even tell people exist. And delete something.
Yeah.
That fixed them.
Just for fun.
Well, I think they let too many have a go at things, and also AI. I think they let too many things that should not have a go at the first group.
There we go. That'll work. So you won't be. I'll give the rest of my pocket. Keep it out of the way.
Oh, I. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. See, I'm not technical at all. One more just in case I move. My boys like Are you allergic?
Well, good evening. It's good to see you all here this evening. In just a moment, I'll have Michael Merritt open us up with the word of prayer. I asked AI to make an image of what Gideon might have looked like. It did really good. There's two big mistakes in it. I don't know if it'll be apparent what they are, but when we talk about the class, you'll figure out what they are pretty quickly. So there are two big mistakes in it, but it's not bad. But in a moment, we'll be in Judges chapter 7. Brian asked that I cover just a little bit, just touch on the end of chapter 7. So we'll be in chapter 7, verses 19 to 25, and then we'll jump to chapter 8, and we'll do our best to get through what we can on chapter 8. So with that, we'll go ahead and have Michael open us up with a word of prayer.
Dear Lord, we come before you now. Thank you for the opportunity to gather together tonight to study your word, gain more understanding. We ask, Lord, that as we study, we take these words and apply them in some way and help us to broaden our knowledge and understanding of your word. Yes, that you be with those, Lord, who were unable to be here tonight. Help them through some next point in time. Amen.
Amen. All right, so chapter 7, verses 19 to 25. If I could get a reader for Judges chapter 7, verses 19 to 25. Oh, go ahead, Grant, please.
So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just set the watch. And they blew the trumpets and smashed the jars that were in their hands. Then the 3 companies blew the trumpets and broke the jars. They held in their left hands the torches, and in their right hands the trumpets to blow. And they cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Every man stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran. They cried out and fled. When they blew the 300 trumpets, the Lord set every man's sword against his comrade, against all the army. And as the army fled as far as Bethsheba, as toward Zerera, as far as the border of Abel-Mahola by Tavath, and the men of Israel were called out from Naphtali and from Asher and from all Manasseh, and they pursued after Midian. Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against the Midianites and capture the waters against them, as far as Beth-Barah and also the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were called out, and they captured the waters as far as Beth-Barah and also the Jordan. And they captured the 2 princes of Midian, Oreb and Zeb. They killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and Zeb they killed at the winepress of Zeb. And they pursued Midian, and they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon across the Jordan.
Because as we talked about last week, this is a very unconventional, very unique military strategy. This takes a lot of faith in God. We have 300 men divided into 3 companies, and these 300 men have trumpets, they have pitchers, and they have torches. Notice it doesn't say anything about swords or spears. And they probably didn't have any, because we know from 1 Samuel, when Saul and Jonathan were fighting a battle, the entire group of Israelites had 2 swords. 2. The whole nation had 2 swords. So they probably didn't have spears. They probably didn't have swords. They may have had, like, maybe farmer's axes, maybe some clubs, maybe some sort of a pokey farming tool. They probably had very little to fight with. I guess you could beat someone with a torch, though. But they didn't have much. So it's really a very amazing strategy, the fact that they're able to accomplish this task without much. And now, of course, once the battle starts, they could pick up some swords from the Midianites, and they're very likely did just that. But they surround the Midianites. They smash the jars. They show the torches, and that likely scared them. They probably thought they were completely surrounded by a monstrous army, and they panic. They start fighting with each other. Chaos breaks out, and they basically run. A lot of people die. A number of people escape, unfortunately, so they have to be chased. So Gideon calls upon the additional tribes to give chase. And it's really an amazing success, at least this first part. Toward the end of the story, we're going to see it's a bit of a fumble, but the initial battle is quite a success. Now, last week we talked about how Gideon was very fearful about this. And now as we look back at the success of this battle, we can say, well, what sort of lessons can we learn about his fear? What do you think? Go ahead.
I think we kind of see, Gideon very clearly, conquers his fear. He puts
Yeah.
it aside to serve God. And actually, I was thinking it's interesting that, Gideon puts aside his fear, takes courage, and then the way God gives him the battle is putting the fear in his enemies to flee away from him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's really an amazing turnaround for someone who's very fearful. He's basically hiding in a wine press because he's so fearful of the Midianites, to someone who's probably fighting the Midianites without a sword. That's pretty spectacular turnaround. So I guess one big lesson is fear does not disqualify you. That you can grow out of that fear. You can overcome that fear, because we see Gideon doing exactly that. He goes from someone who's very afraid to someone who's actually really having a tremendous amount of faith in God. God is patient with our honest doubt. Gideon asks God for several different signs. God gives him. God is patient with him, gives him time to grow in his faith, gives him time to make it to the next steps. And I'd say that's true with us too. God wants us to be saved. He's giving us time. He's patient with us. He wants us to go to heaven, so he's giving us time. And we got to trust in him, that we have to make sure we keep following. We can't give up. We can also say faith takes time to grow and mature. For Gideon, it was back and forth. It started with questions, baby steps. But in that very final sign he gets when he listens to the Midianite dream, he's really pretty amazingly faithful. He's able to accomplish a very courageous plan. Any other final thoughts on chapter 7 before we jump to chapter 8? Go ahead.
I think it kind of has to do with going into chapter 8, but I think it's notable that God does the whole thing with, whittling down the army to 300 men, because he says he wants it to be clear that God is the one who's going to give him the victory. But then after the Midianite army flees, then all of Israel goes into pursuit. And I think there's also an element of, God wants it to be clear that it was God who gave the victory, but he also wants all of the Israelites to participate in doing the work of defeating the Midianites too.
Yeah.
So kind of we see both things happening at the end of chapter 7.
Yeah, that's a good point. That in the end, God did want additional participation. It's the participation we get from Ephraim maybe wasn't the best, unfortunately, and we see that again in Judges chapter 12. They're a little odd in the way they participate. Maybe not as spiritual as they could be, but at least with the 3 tribes that help. I can't remember the 3 tribes off the top of my head, but I think Manasseh is where Gideon is from. So at least some of the tribes seem like they're really dedicated and willing to jump up for help. Ephraim is maybe on the fence a little bit. So, any other thoughts on this before we jump to the next? Okay, so let's jump to chapter 8, and we'll take a look at chapter 8, verses 1 through 3, first, if I could get a reader for Judges chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Go ahead, please.
Then the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this thing you have done to us, not calling us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they contended with him vigorously. But he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezer? God has given the leaders of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb into your hands. And what was I able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger towards him subsided when he said that.
So Gideon had originally asked for people from Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, which is interesting because he's actually from Manasseh. So it looks like Manasseh is actually not from that initial three.
Calls it Manasseh.
Oh, he does? Okay.
Said like the next verse.
Oh, okay. So four tribes then. Okay. I guess the men of Ephraim were just not chosen either by God or by Gideon. I'm not sure. We're not necessarily told, but they wanted to participate. And I have to wonder if they had heard Gideon's kind of crazy plan, if they would have said, "No way," because it is kind of a crazy plan. If you didn't have much faith in God, if you hadn't gone through the trials and those signs that Gideon had gone through, if someone just walked up and says, "Hey, we're going to surround everyone with jars and torches, and we're going to fight 70,000 people, 45,000," it seems like a pretty harebrained plan. So maybe Ephraim would not have been all that useful. Maybe they would have actually said no. Go ahead.
I've got a question because I can't figure it out in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
But after the battle with using the torches and the pitchers, in chapter 7 in verse 25, in 24, Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim saying, "Come down against Midian and take the water before him." Anyway, he called Ephraim to come help him chase the Midianites. But then, first verse of the next chapter, they're mad because he didn't call.
I guess maybe because he didn't call them as part of the original 300.
I think that's
Yeah. And it was actually more than 300. I can't remember how many it was in chapter 70.
30,000.
30,000, yeah. So it does look like they were excluded from that original number.
And it's interesting. I went back and searched Ephraim, and they kind of had an attitude problem all through the history.
I think so. We'll actually talk about that toward the end too, because that'll come up again in a little bit. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting that they had that attitude, and in the class material it mentions 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 15 through 19 to tell us the attitude we're supposed to have about participation. It's the godly attitude we're supposed to have. So let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 15 through 19. If I could get a reader for 1 Corinthians. Michael, would you do that?
If the foot says, "Because I am not a hand, I am not a part of the body," it is not for this reason, any the less a part of the body. The ear says, "Because I am not an eye, I am not a part of the body," it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But now God has placed the members, each one of them, in the body, just as he desired. If they were all one member, where would the body be?
So in this verse, we see kind of the godly way of participating, recognizing that you won't necessarily always get to do every role you may want to, and that you may need to at times be willing to take a lesser role or to do something you didn't particularly want, and to just be okay with that, because it doesn't look like the people of Ephraim are okay with not getting what they want. They weren't called to battle, and they wanted to be, and they're bitter about it. But in our lives, not everyone's going to be a preacher, not everyone's going to be an elder, not everyone's going to be a deacon or a teacher, and we have to be content in the roles that God gives us. Go ahead, Greg.
Gideon didn't even know what God had intended for him to do, and so he was just following instructions.
Yeah.
And then when he called out for the hill people to come down and take the waters, that was part of God's plan. So, it's not. I guess it's not our fault if other people don't understand. So Gideon took I want to say politician, but that ain't quite the peacemaker.
Yeah.
Role, telling them, "You did a great thing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, for sure. He does a good job of kind of diffusing the situation. So one of the questions from the class material is, what do you think about the attitude of Ephraim? I think we probably all recognize something about it. Go ahead.
I kind of get the feeling that maybe they're even a little bit embarrassed, and they're
maybe
getting angry to hide that they're embarrassed that they weren't there at the beginning to fight Midian. And I think sometimes we get embarrassed and we kind of want to get mad at people to not make them, to not want to reveal that we're embarrassed.
Maybe stole their thunder, or I had read somewhere that Ephraim felt that they were the leaders of all the tribes. I tried to look at the numbers, though. At least you never know where websites get their numbers necessarily, but I asked AI who was the biggest tribe at the time of the judges, and it actually said Judah was quite a bit bigger. It said it was like 75,000, and Ephraim was like 37,000. So at least according to AI, Judah was actually the biggest tribe during the time of judges. So, but Ephraim was not a tiny tribe necessarily. But there's one big difference with Ephraim. It had Shiloh, it had the temple, it had the tabernacle, it had the arks. That means it probably had the most of the priests there. So in that sense, they had some preeminence. They actually had the religious system was there, and they probably had at least a little bit of the prestige from Joseph too. Go ahead, George.
From Joshua, he was from Ephraim.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Caleb was from Ephraim.
Yeah, so they had you could say they had a history of pretty good leaders. Joseph was an amazing leader. Joshua was an amazing leader. Caleb wasn't so much a leader as a conqueror, but still very, very impressive historically. So they may have had a little bit of that feeling like, hey, they're the go-tos for leading the nation. Go ahead.
The attitude really comes out as arrogance when we get to chapter 12 in Jephthah. Then the men of Ephraim gathered together, crossed over towards Zaphon, and said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over and fight against the people of Ammon, and did not tell us to go with you?
Yeah.
We will burn your house down."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they definitely. And in that story, actually, I think they lose about 40,000 people too. So
that's pure arrogance.
Yeah. So that I don't know how many years pass. They may be like 100 years or so after when that actually happens. But they lose. I think it's like, I can't remember off the top of my head how many they lose. It's like 40,000 people die in that battle because of that arrogance. And if they have 37,000 people now, 100 years from now, maybe they had 100,000 people, but still they lost a huge portion of their population because of that arrogance. So a lot of people died. I assume, the other thing they may have wanted was the riches, because we see there's a lot of riches that are gathered from the Midianites, tremendous amount of gold and different earrings and stuff. So maybe they felt left out of the spoils too. Like, hey, you're taking all this opportunity to get gold. Maybe they felt they were looking bad. Maybe they wanted glory. It's hard to say. But Gideon fixes the problem. So what does he do? Yeah. I say a soft answer would be the thing that I would say. Proverbs chapter 15, verses 1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh answer stirs up anger. So Gideon did a soft answer. He saw this situation. It wasn't going to end well, and he prevents them from proceeding to any sort of fighting or pillaging or anything. He stops them. He gives them a soft answer. Maybe strokes their ego a little bit, but it solves the problem. And as George mentioned in chapter 12, it didn't work out that way. In the battle with the Ammonites, Ephraim lost a lot of people. They actually tried to fight against their brethren in that example. And they ended up losing a lot of people of their own people because of that. So it is unfortunate how the wrong attitudes can end up getting a lot of people killed. Any other thoughts on this before we jump to verse 4 through 9? Okay, so let's jump to Judges chapter 8, verses 4 through 9. If I could get a reader for Judges chapter 8, verses 4 through 9. George, please.
Then Gideon and the 300 men who were with him came to the Jordan and crossed over, weary yet pursuing. And he said to the men of Succoth, "Please give loaves of bread to the people who are following me, for they are weary, and I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. And the leaders of Succoth said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hands, that we should give bread to your army? And Gideon said, all right, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will thrash your bodies with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. And he went up from there to Penuel and spoke similarly to them. And the men of Penuel answered him just as the men of Succoth had. Verse 9.
Yes, please.
So he spoke also to the men of Penuel, saying, when I return safely, I will tear down this town.
Okay, so a couple things I wanted to key in on here. The cities of Succoth and Peniel are part of the tribe of Gad, and they're on the east side of the River Jordan. So they're a little bit separated from the rest of the tribes by that. I don't know how hard it was to cross the river. I imagine sometimes you just couldn't cross it if it was flooding. So they may have been a little bit disconnected because it doesn't seem like they're all that interested in helping. They had asked, actually, during the time of Joshua to stay on this side, and they promised to stay faithful if they stayed on this side of the River Jordan. But it doesn't look like necessarily they stayed as connected as they should have been. Go ahead.
And they had promised Moses that they would help the other tribes.
Oh, in battle, that's right. Yeah, they had.
And then Joshua did say that promises that Moses made had all been kept.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But in the end, they are still brothers in theory, so they're family, and I guess they refuse aid. Which, why would they refuse aid? They're brothers in theory. There should be family. Go ahead.
I wonder if these being on the other side of the river, they're kind of more in the hands of the Midianites.
Yeah, it could be
people on the Israel side of the river, and maybe they're more afraid of. If we give Gideon bread to go chase the kings of Midian, if he fails, then Midian's going to come and they're going to destroy us.
Yeah.
They're afraid that Gideon's not going to keep winning.
And it is just 300 people.
Yeah.
It's not like it's the other cadre of the Ephraimites and the other. This is just 300 people. And I think they're going to, I don't remember off the top of my head if it's 15,000 they're going to kill in this next battle. So if 300 people came to me and said they were going to kill 15,000 trained warriors, I'd be kind of doubtful of that. And it looks like these two cities don't really believe that, although they should have believed in the success that they just had, though. That's the problem. They didn't. So maybe they weren't believing that success that just happened. But I have to assume they either didn't have faith or maybe they weren't all that connected to their brothers anymore. And I guess the next question is, well, was Gideon right to bring vengeance on these people? Because he definitely brings vengeance on these people. What do you think? As a reminder, he killed everyone in the tower of Peniel, and then it's the way I read it. I don't think he killed everyone in Succoth. I think he just kind of punished them. So
he killed the leaders.
The leaders, yeah.
Some versions say princes.
Yeah.
Basically, the leaders of those towns were the ones that made that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for Peniel it says he killed all the men and tore down the tower. I think for Succoth it says he just used briars on the leaders. So it seems like Succoth got off a little easier than.
One of the commentators I read said they all got killed.
Oh, it's possible, yeah.
Because they wouldn't have done it to one town and not to another.
That's possible. Yeah, maybe that's just yeah, that's possible. Greg, do you have a comment?
Main theme of Judges, isn't it? They fall away, they get overtaken, they come back, they fall away, get overtaken.
Oh yeah.
With them being on the east side of the river, they would be more open to being taken over. If they were trying to hedge their bet to make peace with the Midians.
Yeah.
If he failed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The lack of faith on their part would definitely be obvious in that.
Yeah, that's.
Not wanting to give him food because if he did fail and then the leaders come back, then they're going to make it hard on the people in the city.
Yeah, for sure. And I know I didn't have time to dig into the history of these two cities to see if they're mentioned anywhere else. But in the end, they're punished for not helping. And don't remember when we did Judges 5, how long ago that was, but in Judges 5, actually, there's a little bit of a parallel with Barak and the prophet Deborah. And they're fighting against the Canaanites in that example. And after that battle is won, the prophet Deborah sings a song. And in one of the verses in the song, it's actually Judges chapter 5, verse 23, has a really interesting verse. I'll read it just for the sake of time. So this is Judges chapter 5, verse 23. It says, "Curse Meraz, said the angel of the Lord, curse its people bitterly, because they did not come to help the Lord against the mighty." So it really looks like the city of Meraz did not help in the battle against the Canaanites. That they, for whatever reason, they just didn't show up. They didn't answer the call to fight. And to be clear, this is the prophet of God calling on God to curse a city. So I assume the outcome of that city was not good at all. If the prophet is telling God to curse you bitterly, I assume that city is just not going to be there anymore, or going to be destroyed, or going to have some level of really bad experiences because they didn't fulfill their answer. They were called on to battle and they didn't do it. So I think it ended really badly. So that was the only other example I could think of that would be a good parallel to this, of someone not coming out to battle. I guess that actually happened again in the Benjaminites, now that I think about it. When the rest of the tribes had to fight against the Benjaminites, there was a couple cities that didn't help, and all the males were killed in those cities too. So there have been a few examples of failing to show up to battle was a big deal. You could get all your males killed. Yeah. So what's the lesson then for us from the idea of someone not showing up to battle? Go ahead.
God doesn't like people who try to play both sides.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Fence sitters. God doesn't like inaction. He doesn't like fence sitters. I suppose you could say that these guys may have been just looking to say, oh, well, maybe I'll give you bread after you win the battle too. So they may have had a perspective of, I'm going to wait and see, which I think a lot of people have that perspective in religion too. They'll wait and see. So inaction definitely has consequences. A couple of verses that you could tie in. I thought of James chapter 4, verse 17. It says, this is James 4:17, says, "Therefore to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin." I think that's a good kind of parallel verse, the idea of when you know you need to do something and you don't do it, you can be accountable for that. I think the other one is maybe the parable of the talents, where the lazy servant is given this whole chunk of silver and he just buries it in the ground. He doesn't do anything with it. He's lazy. He doesn't use the opportunities that God gives him. And in the end, the master punishes him. So we have to make sure we use the opportunities that God gives us, because we're going to be accountable for those opportunities. And we don't want to end up spiritually dead. We want to use the opportunities we have. So this brings us maybe to the next question. This one isn't in the class materials, but I added it because I think it helps us to think, what battles does God want us to fight today? Because none of us are fighting the Midianites. But we do have spiritual battles. Every day in our lives, we have spiritual battles we have to fight. So what are the spiritual battles that God has called us to fight? What do you think?
Battles of the flesh.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Against sin. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
I'm just thinking of I'm not sure where it is, but the helmet of righteousness, the sword of, and the shield, sword of faith. He gives us the tools.
Yeah.
And he wants us to use those tools to defend the word.
You got my first one. Overcoming habitual sins or bad habits. That's a big battle we need to be fighting. Go ahead, George. False teaching, yeah, for sure. That may actually be one we fight on the corporate level too, like the whole church working together. But on an individual level, we could definitely fight that too. Any other thoughts on the spiritual battles we face kind of more day to day in our lives? We all face them. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, standing up for the word, we're constantly bombarded with spiritual problems.
Yeah.
So we have to stand up for the truth.
Yeah. So on an individual level, at work or something like that, where we have to, at times, make tough choices. It'll also be a good example. Be someone who doesn't take longer breaks than you should, doesn't steal stuff from work, doesn't take longer lunches than you should, because the world does all those things. They're lousy employees. They're goofing off on their phone all day. They're not working at all. So we have an opportunity to really show an example of what a Christian can be, and that we actually work hard and we actually care about our work. Another one, sort of what Teresa mentioned, is sharing the gospel with our friends and neighbors. That's tough. I think that can be for us, a lot of us, we may lack faith, like Gideon lacked faith to do that. Another one would be fulfilling the call to try to help the Christians we know who have fallen into sin. That's also really tough. Go ahead, George.
Sin in our own lives.
Absolutely, yeah. Individual sin, bad habits and sin. I guess you could also say spiritual growth too is a big battle for a lot of us. Learning new things, growing, learning new skills. Participation also is a spiritual battle, saying I'm going to learn how to participate in a new way. But I think like Gideon, a lot of us lack courage. We don't think we can do it. We think we're inadequate for the job. But I think like Gideon, we need to fight some battles. We need to ask for God for spiritual growth. And it's going to take time, and we can't give up. So maybe we don't have courage right away to share the gospel with our friends and neighbors, but it's something we can pray about. We can ask God to give us the courage. We can ask God to give us the opportunity for spiritual conversations, to give us open doors, something we can work on. Maybe we don't have courage to tell someone who we love that's lost in sin that they're lost and they need to change. Well, pray for courage. Work on developing that courage. Pray for open doors. Look for opportunities, and you can grow. Go ahead. Oh, did you have?
I did. I don't know if you're listening.
Oh, go ahead. No, sorry.
I was going to say that I was thinking about the fact that here with these two cities, all Gideon wanted from them was for them to give him some bread.
Yeah.
It's not that God is always asking us to do something really, really difficult or that's going to take a lot of work, but He does ask us to do things that require us to trust that Him and that He's going to kind of make things succeed.
Yeah. They weren't asking that much. Baby steps, and it's a lot of times opportunities to do good things are not necessarily that hard. Go ahead, Teresa.
To use the talents that we have, and from the parable of the talent, it kind of seems like we all have at least one talent, and we should be using at least that one talent.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and what was the talent? Was it 1,000 pieces of silver, something like that? It wasn't a small. It was a big chunk of silver. I can't remember how many days' wages it was. A lot of money. It'd be thousands upon thousands of dollars. So even in that example, the guy who didn't have all that much actually had quite a bit, and he just buried it and put it in the ground. So he kind of wasted his opportunities. Go ahead, Greg.
A little comparison in Matthew 10:42 and Mark 9:41, he talks about giving a cup of water to drink because you belong to Christ. By no means lose your reward. This is the very minimum that we could do. Giving them bread was the very minimum that they could do.
Right.
Suffered greatly because they did not even do that.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess in the end, what we need to look at is that we need to fight our spiritual battles. We need to be willing to step up to the plate, and maybe we feel really inadequate for the job, but start praying to God to help you accomplish those things, and look for those baby steps so you can grow to accomplish those things. Because God can allow us to win those spiritual battles if we have that willing heart, if we're really willing to grow and try to accomplish those tasks. But on the flip side, if we're like the lazy servant, we won't be saved because we're not using our opportunities. So it really does matter. I mean, the parable of the lazy servant who wasted the talent should scare us, because that's talking about us. That could be us. We could go to hell because we wasted our lives. We didn't accomplish the tasks that we had. So that should scare us. So that's any more comments on this before we jump to the next couple verses? Okay, so let's jump then. So I'll probably just jump over 10 through 21 for the sake of time. So I just don't think we're going to have time to cover it all. So we're going to jump instead to chapter 8, verses 22 through 28, and we'll try to deal with the kind of the bad aspect of the story of Gideon. So if I could get a reader for Judges chapter 8, verses 22 through, please. Yes, thank you.
Then the men of Israel said to Gideon, "Rule over us, you and your son and your grandson also, for you have saved us from the hand of Midian." Gideon said to them, "I will not rule over you, and my son will not rule over you. The Lord will rule over you." And Gideon said to them, "Let me make a request of you. Every one of you give me the earrings from his spoil, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. And they answered, We will willingly give them. And they spread a cloak, and every man threw in the earrings of his spoil. And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, besides the crescent ornaments and the pendants and the purple garments worn by the kings of Midian, and besides the collars that were around the necks of their camels. And Gideon made an ephod of it and put it in his city in Ophrah. And all Israel wore after it there, and it became a snare to Gideon and to his family. So Midian was subdued before the people of Israel, and they raised their heads no more. And the land had rest 40 years in the days of Gideon.
Okay, thank you. So verse 22 through 23 is really very good. Gideon is asked to become king, and he recognizes that that's not his role. God didn't ask him to do that, and he refuses. So he makes a really good spiritual choice, which I'm sure a lot of lesser people would have not made that choice. A lot of people would have given in to temptation and grabbed hold of that opportunity to be king. Lots of people would have done that. I think probably anyone from Ephraim probably would have grabbed onto that. So he makes a good choice. But in verses 24 through 27, then he totally drops the ball. It's baffling to figure out what in the world is he thinking. I asked AI how much gold this is. It said it's about 600 troy ounces of gold. That's something like $1 or $2 million worth of gold. This is a lot of money. This is a huge chunk of gold. So we're talking about a pretty fancy, large, 600 troy ounces would make something quite large. You wouldn't be, I don't think you could wear it, it'd be so heavy. It'd just be this monstrous contraption. So maybe it was so big that it was just like a more than man-sized type thing. Like just this monstrous contraption, but in the shape of an ephod. I don't know. But what sort of motivations could he possibly have to do this? Why in the world did he do this? Go ahead, George. Maybe, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I don't want, to guess it. Maybe he had good intentions.
I hope.
Ephod is one of the things that the priests are supposed to wear as worshiping God, and he's thinking, well, I'm going to make one of the things that we use to worship God, and he shouldn't have done it, but maybe he wasn't thinking about.
Yeah, I hope he had good intentions. I mean, it would match his character to assume he had good intentions, because we know it causes him to stumble. So I don't think he was thinking in the back of his mind, "Well, I really hope I caused my brothers to stumble." I don't think he had that thought. Go ahead, George.
He had to know that only priests can wear an ephod.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. Do you have another comment, Grant?
I was just going to say, kind of along the same lines of, this comes right after him saying the Lord will rule over you. And again, maybe he has some kind of, twisted bad logic here. I'm going to copy the tabernacle ephod and use it to remind people that God rules over them.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, doesn't go that. Maybe
he was talking to the people from Penuel and what was the other city? I forget it now. The two cities on the east side of the Jordan. Maybe they made an altar. Maybe he was talking to them and say, "Hey, we made an altar. You should do the same thing." I don't know. Didn't work out particularly well. But if I had assumed the best of intentions, maybe it was a memorial to the victory. Maybe he thought he'd have some sort of memorial, help people remind them that God did something wonderful. Maybe he thought it would be something to give glory to God, even though God didn't ask for this. It's not in the law, so this is something extra from the law. The other thing is I thought is maybe because of Manasseh. Because Manasseh's got all the different trappings. They've got the ark, the tabernacle, and Shiloh is about a day and a half to 2 days away. And if they're not particularly friendly to you, it would be like going to a church full of people who didn't like you. So maybe that was part of the stumbling block too, is they're dealing with just a tough religious situation where they're traveling to a place they're not really wanted. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it doesn't say that this became a problem right away.
Yeah.
Maybe that it started out as, something like a memorial of the time God gave us victory, and then they turned it into something idolatrous later on in Gideon's life.
Yeah, for sure. It actually probably was a stepping stone to get to Baal worship too, because at the very end of the chapter, they're in Baal worship. So at first, it was probably more like just worshiping the true God through it. And then at some point it becomes actual Baal worship, because Baal worship was not anything like the worship of God. It's a completely different God. So it's weird how they get to that point through just an ephod. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
So Manasseh, the men of Israel said to rule over us and your son and your grandson. They wanted a ruler.
Yeah.
And he said, God, not me, I won't do it. God rules over you. I wonder if that is a reason for the ephod.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe like a symbol of authority. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. That's possible.
Where you get your direction from.
Yeah, it's possible. Comments anywhere? Okay. So, what do we know about ephods? I think George told us one thing about them already. What did you say, George, about the ephod?
Only priests wear them.
Yeah, in particular, which priest? The high priest, yeah, the high priest. Now, I don't know if each new high priest got their own version. I don't think they did. I think actually they made one and it got carried on because it actually was a ceremonial thing prepared for the high priest, and it had something special. It had the Urim and the Thummim, so you could communicate to God. Go ahead.
God gave the instructions, meticulous instructions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it was something with gold and jewels that was made according to the way that God told craftsmen to make it. So it was specified, very particular specified. And what do we know about Gideon? He's not part of the tribe of Levi, so he doesn't get to wear this thing. He also doesn't get to make this thing. That's the problem. So he basically has no role here. So it's just, it just doesn't make sense. He doesn't have any part in this. Just none. And he can't wear an ephod. He can't be a high priest. He can't be part of the temple service. There's just nothing. There's no reason to create something like this. So I don't know why he does it in the end. And it sort of spoils the victory in some levels as you think about it, because he did so well and then he just totally fumbles and makes a mess and ends up getting probably equal number of people killed that he saved in the end, or more. It's sad. And so why was it a snare then? Or how was it a snare in the end? Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, it caused them to move into idolatry.
Yeah.
And it seems like, except for the gold that was used in the tabernacle and temple for the things God told them to use it for, gold seemed to be a downfall for them.
Yeah, and the golden calf. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think in the end, anything that's violating the pattern of the law is going to be a snare. It's going to be something that can cause us to be lost. So it can be something small. It can be something big. I think at first glance, you think this is kind of a small thing. You wouldn't think this is going to cause you to get to Baal worship after 100 years, but it does. So as reflective on other times people don't follow the Word of God, it ends up really badly because it can be like a stepping stone that gets you maybe a generation or so from now to some place totally different. You never thought you'd get there. Go ahead, Greg.
It's kind of interesting that when you put it out, that it says that where is it? That Israel poured after the ephod.
Yeah.
And then down there after the death of Gideon, then they went and they poured after the idols.
Yeah, 833 talks about, yeah.
Kind of like that snake on a stick.
It is, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I guess it just reminds us, too, that good intentions don't always have good outcomes. That if you don't tie your good intention to the Word of God, to some sort of authority, it can really end badly and end up causing lost souls, destruction of churches. So you have to be really careful about good intentions because they can really just terribly. So I was thinking about examples of instrumental music, denominationalism, institutionalism. They all had good intentions, but they just disastrous outcomes because you were not following the simple pattern of the church. You're changing the pattern of the church, and you're going to end up getting people lost because you're changing the pattern of the church. So the reminder is the Word of God is a pattern. Any change to that pattern can have really bad outcomes. So we have to be careful. So we've got, I think, two. Oh, go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, God, in the beginning of the law, Exodus 20, said you shall have no other gods before me. Well, ephod became an idol to them.
Yeah.
So their devotion to God changed.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. And it's just sad to think that so many people got lost because of this small change to the pattern that God gave. I guess we have 2 minutes left. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to 28 through 35. I think probably the only point that probably more of an interesting point is that Gideon marries lots of wives, and he has a concubine. He has lots of sons. And one of the consequences of having that many wives and a concubine was the one son from the concubine was hated. And because that son was hated, he kills all the other sons. So again, it shows us that polygamy often didn't end very well. There's a lot of bitterness, a lot of hatred in the polygamous examples we see in the Bible. And in this particular case, the bad example was he got everyone killed. So it's pretty tragic. Had he just stuck with one wife and had kids from that one wife, that wouldn't have happened. So it really is a sobering example of how, and I don't think there's any good example of polygamy in the Bible either. I think it's just always, God is showing us the dangers of why this doesn't work very well. And in the worst case, people get killed. Go ahead, Greg.
You were talking earlier about sins that we have to battle, that we have to fight. And down here in the 34th, 35th verse, it talks about the people of Israel did not remember the Lord their God delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side. And they did not show steadfast love to the family of Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, in return for all the good that he had done for Israel.
Yeah.
So not only did they leave God again, they forgot to appreciate what Gideon had done for them.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good thought. Well, I think we're just now at our time, so thank you for the class.